All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the first part of Bombina Breeders. Um, I am starting this new series on my channel. Um, I wanted to do a decent intro before I get too much into it. I was considering maybe before I even hibernated the toads, starting this off, but it would have just been boring waiting the couple of months between putting them in the cold box there and taking them back out. But we're gonna get started with this. In case anybody has been keeping up with the Orchid Chronicles, there were a few episodes where you may have seen the box there. Basically, that's just a box with some holes in the bottom. It's stuck into the window. The rest of the window is insulated. That other box, I don't really use for anything. I just have that there so that I wouldn't have to fill the entire space there with more insulation. It just is a space saver. I'll probably take that down at some point. Anyway, I use that so that the cold air from outside would reach the firebelly toads, so they'd be at, upper 40s, low 50s for the winter, so they could overwinter and hibernate. But, they wouldn't be out in the frigid cold, they wouldn't be in the refrigerator or anything like that. So I've bred firebelly toads twice before. I do want to quickly introduce some of the other animals that I have, just because I don't want 10 million comments from people asking, oh, what was that I saw there? What's this and that? So I'll just get that out of the way now. So starting on the other side of my room, I have this little platy. It's a miniature guppy type of thing. It's very sweet. I didn't name it yet. I've had several of them. It seems that this little container can only hold one at a time, and I've had several in there. They died off until there was one left. Funny enough, this one was from Walmart, and it's lived the longest. I have a king snake in here. She still hasn't eaten. It's been 3.5 weeks, but that's okay. I have to put her decorations back in. There'll be another snake coming and a ball python very soon, so this is the setup for that. We have Shia, our chubby painted frog. He's hiding at the very bottom of the substrate right now. We have Rick and Morty, two young pickerel frogs in here. They're just hiding. I've got 6 axolotls. This is Chipotle. This is Burrito. She's 7. She's the oldest of the axolotls. She's Agave's grandmother. Agave's a male. Agave is Quesadilla's son. Quesadilla is one of Burrito's daughters. Jalapeno, who lives in here, is Burrito's other daughter. And then this is Tortilla. Tortilla is not related to any of these other guys. And so, Burrito's the oldest. Agave is about a year now. Quesadilla and Jalapeno are now 4. Tortilla's 5, I think. And Chipotle's got to be like 2. I have some Neocardinia davidi. It's a shrimp species. They're the orange morph. I don't see them right now, but we can find them later. In here, I just got a baby crested gecko. It's in here. I don't know where it is right now. It's probably hiding in all the plants. Various mantises. I'm not going to go through every last one of them, just for time, the interest of time. Predator katydid eggs. The housefly setup. And then Pickle the pickerel frog. He's hiding. So those are the other animals. Then we have 5 firebelly toads. Pretty sure that was Tippy. That's Moper. She's the bigger female. She's really starting to fatten up. There's Rental Toad. I'm borrowing him from somebody because one of my males died over the summer, and I needed an extra male, so he's my friend, so I'm just borrowing him for the breeding season. Let's see. That's Beth. She's the other female. I named her Beth because Beth rhymes with death. And then, Spaz, the oldest male, is hiding out somewhere. So we're going to be primarily following these guys. So let me give a brief rundown of what's been going on. They hibernated in here until 2 weeks ago. And then I put them in here. This is a setup that I'm going to be using for spawning. There's not a lot of water in it right now. and there's a moderate amount of plants. And what I generally do is, as the season, if you will, progresses, I add more water and more plant material, and I increase the photo period. I up this by a half hour every other week. And when I diminish the photo period length they receive, I go down half an hour every other week, which, this makes it very handy to do. It's just a photo period timer. The light is on over them, so they can measure the day length. Right now, the thing goes on at 6 in the morning and goes off at 6:30. At some point, it's got to go off at 7:30. That's right. So we have this set up, and I've just been keeping the water as clean as I possibly can. It does look kind of murky. I'm trying to clean it frequently because I'm feeding them a lot more often so the females can really fatten up and build the reserves they need. The females have been getting a varied diet. I've been switching between different roach species and crickets and worms of various sorts, earthworm chunks, as well as the butterworms, waxworms, and various other things. I've been using calcium and vitamin powder to dust some of the feeder insects, just so I have a huge variety of different things. They're producing egg material. During the normal season, they just live on a staple of earthworms, because that's just a good all-purpose food for them, but because they'll be breeding, they are going to be on a varied diet. That's probably the best thing for them. Again, it's going to enhance the health of the females so they don't deplete themselves producing eggs. The eggs will be healthier. Yeah, they're already trying to mate, but it's going to be a while. The females are not nearly fat enough to be ready to pop. Basically, from the last couple of times I bred them, usually when we get around 13 and a half to 14 hours of light is when the first spawning occurs. The water will be at a good level. They'll spawn a little bit, and then over the course of several more weeks, there'll be a few more spawning nights, spaced anywhere from 5 to 12 days apart. And what will happen is there will be fewer and fewer eggs each night the female spawns and produces eggs until she stops. That's the way it's gone. Beth has never been through this process before. Moper's been through the process twice, and that's a really fun thing to do. We're going to watch the tadpoles develop. We're going to have a lot of fun. I'm also going to be working with one of the local schools because I do a lot of outreach stuff for them. And what we're going to do is a comparative ontogeny. Ontogeny is basically the study of how an organism changes as a function of its development. Don't confuse that with phenology. Phenology is more as a function of the time of year, although you could argue that organisms that mate at a specific time of year will change as the year progresses, whether or not it's because of their development. Phenology would also apply to things that are fully matured and no longer in active development, but that's a different story. We're going to be looking at wood frog tadpoles compared to the fireblade toads, because wood frogs are native here, and they are ephemeral breeders. They come out very beginning of spring, sometimes when the ground is still frozen. They lay all their eggs at once. See, Moper's not receptive. She's trying to break away from Tippy right now, which is perfectly fine. The males are just starting to make a lot of noise and get ready for the spawning season, but she's just not ready to produce the eggs yet. She's still developing them in her body, and she will. She's going to be really, really rotund. But we're going to compare how tadpoles of fire... Now, rental toad is joining in. This is actually a very common sight. Oh. The males are always trying to mate with each other and the females and plants and everything. It's just their drive. They want to produce babies, which is good for me as a breeder, but the female toads will probably get annoyed. Anyway, we're going to compare the development of a frog that breeds in permanent bodies of water and that has an extended spawning season to a frog that breeds in temporary pools of water that has to very quickly develop into a froglet before the pond dries. And we're going to compare the weight of metamorphosized froglets of both species to the weight of the mature adult, and we're hoping that the froglets of the fireblades will be larger in comparison to what they're supposed to get to than the wood frogs. Wood frogs are bigger as adults. They metamorphosize at roughly the same size, but of course a wood frog froglet still has a lot more growing in terms of how many times larger it needs to get before it's mature than a fireblade toad. So I should quickly go over how you get fireblade toads to breed. You want to give them a daylight peak of about I say 16 and a half hours, but anything between 15 and a half and 17 hours is probably sufficient. And you start diminishing the photoperiod cycle that they receive. Again, half hour every other week. And then once you get to around 12, 11 and a half hours or so, they're not really going to be that interested in eating. So then I move them into a container of soil or moss, and I put them in a cool area. It can be, an unheated closet or something. Make sure it doesn't really freeze, like upper 40s, lower 50s is sufficient. I leave them there for about 11 weeks. Then I take them back out, and I will slowly increase the light level and the water level, and just keep feeding them. And that will get your females nice and fattened up, and you'll get them to breed. So we're going to have some fun documenting this process, and I hope people will be excited and follow along. Feel free to comment on the video any questions you have about the process, and any concerns, comments, what have you. So yeah, I'm hoping this is a decent introduction to this.